I can't hear you.
Here, I didn't unmute myself.
There we go. I was like, what's happening?
It's that kind of day, folks. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Drop your name and say hello, where you're from. I am so glad to be here today. I have with me Alexa Bigwarfe from Write Publish Sell and the Women in Publishing Summit. Hello, Alexa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a crazy time of year. Everyone's trying to get the year wrapped up, and I'm sure they're planning their big, exciting publishing plans for the next year. So we're here to talk about behind the scenes of what it's like between an editor and a publisher and what we know works from each side, and kind of behind the scenes so you can understand why they're telling you to do what they're doing, what they're looking for, what that means. So we'll just kind of walk through that today. But let me just look through our list of people that we have. We have a lot of people all over here. We have San Diego, Tijuana, Mexico, Houston, Texas coming in, Orlando, Florida, just down the street, Mesa, Arizona, Texas. We've got a cat fantasy children's book coming in. That's kind of fun. And babysitting a 10-week-old corgi pup. Okay, great. It's snowing there. Well, it's snowing here too. I'm not in Orlando today. Nonfiction. I've asked them to put in their work in progress so we can kind of get an idea of what types of writers we have with us today.
Good.
Nonfiction, occupational safety and health book. We're from Owen Sound, Ontario, Canada. We have Alabama. Oh my goodness, we're more and more here. So keep dropping them in. Everyone, we're going to create our own little communities. We go a lot from Canada, Hamilton, Yukon, New York, Long Island, Ottawa. Woo, we're really loading up there. So great. All right, let me just pop up here and explain what's going on today. Today, we're going to talk about the book editing secrets to successful publishing. And so what we want to do is help you learn how to plan your manuscript strategically, write professionally, and edit effectively your book before you approach an agent or a publishing house, because it's really, really important you know what you're doing and you respect that you probably will get one great chance with the person that you want to be with. So we hope that you will gain valuable insight from a publisher and a professional editor, and we're going to talk about how to create a firm foundation for your manuscript. We'll discover the essential stages of writing creatively and then editing logically. So there's two parts there. And then after that, how you approach the whole publishing scheme and schedule and what it does. So your publisher can evaluate everything and help you keep building there and successfully publish your book. Today we have Alexa Bigwarfe, as I mentioned you. Alexa, if you give me a moment, I just want to tell them a little bit about you. I think a lot of our friends here know you, but if you give me a second, I'll just introduce you properly. Alexa is with Write Publish Sell and the Women in Publishing Summit. She's probably started just like everyone out here. You're looking for information on writing and publishing and book marketing. So everything you did when you wrote your first book, and she could find it. So she's read blogs, she's taken courses, she's listened to podcasts, and she's overwhelmed, and she's made choices that wasted time and money. So now she's going to share with you what's worked for her and what you need to know to get started and continue to seek information on improving and the process and getting better results. So that is part of Write, Publish, Sell. And over the last decade, they've helped thousands of authors through their webinars, conferences, coaching, and services. And their team continues to learn and improve their skills for publishing and book marketing and every project they touch. So Alexa, you're passionate about your role as an author, and I know that you advocate for other authors to keep them well informed. So today I want to talk about the steps they need to take for publishing and marketing and the partners. And when we talk about partners, that's how you and I got to know each other, basically.
Absolutely.
Is how do we trust somebody? Who do we choose? And, I'm not a believer in being a guru or a master of all things. So I think it's really good to do one thing well and then find the others who do the same. And that's how we're working together today.
Absolutely. It's really important. I mean, there's so many service providers out there. There's so many people in the field, and choosing someone to work with can be very overwhelming, whether it's for your editing, whether it's for publishing services, all of those things. So yes. It's
Yeah,
always
it's really
good
good.
to get knowledgeable and know what you're getting into and know what questions to ask and all of those types of things.
Exactly, exactly. So, today we're going to talk about the secrets to successful publishing, and I just want to. We've got a 4-part series coming up in January, and so we'll just mention what those are here, and then you can come back and join us. But first, we want to kind of give you behind the scenes of how we work, how we think, and so you can see how that's going on there. So today we're going to show how to plan your manuscript and strategically, and talk about how to approach the agent and how all that works. And then we're going to have the 4-part series coming up. So this is going to be first, you're going to learn how to strategically write and edit your manuscript. So that'll be the first series that we have. And then we'll start with how to self-edit, work with an editor, and then complete your revisions. And we had a very interesting conversation about revisions and how surprising it can be and overwhelming. So I think it's very important, not only from the view of an author, but also from a publisher, of how to do and how to do the revisions and how to approach it, and why it's important that you do them yourself, etc. And then how to book at it from your publisher's perspective, what they expect before you come to them, and how you can self-edit or work with an editor to be prepared properly. And then lastly, how to get your book published, and kind of how do we go down that whole path of publishing and launching and marketing. So again, this is what we're doing here. So I have some questions for you. I've been collecting them. Alexa, are you ready for us today?
I am ready. I'm ready.
So again, today is the book editing secrets for successful publishing. Everyone who's watching and joined us, please make sure you drop in your questions. We'll take them as we can, and we'll talk back and forth. We just like to chat a little bit and tell you what we know and give you a little bit of insight there. So let's see here. We're talking about learning how to plan your manuscript strategically. And part of doing that is making sure that you edit before you come to the publisher, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this is what, so this is going to vary depending on which route to publishing you're going. Obviously, we're talking about going through a publisher, so you have to consider the type of publishing that you are doing. So there's 3 main types of publishers out there, really. There's the traditional publisher that you've heard of, the big ones, and then you divide that into 2 types of publishers. Within that, you have the publisher who take solicited manuscripts and unsolicited manuscripts. So solicited means that has to come through an agent, and unsolicited means that you can just go directly to a publisher to submit it. Either way, whether you're going through an agent, whether you're going through a publisher, you want to make sure that your book is as polished as possible, because they get tons of submissions, and you'll want to make sure that they're impressed by what they see right away. And if what they see is grammar mistakes and punctuation mistakes and all those types of things, then you're just going to be slid right over to the no thank you right now. So you have that route. And then you have, what's that?
Slush, the big
The
slush pile we used to hear about.
exactly. Then you have hybrid publishers who are going to vary across the board. And if you've never heard of a hybrid publisher, basically they operate like a traditional publisher, but they do charge service. It's a partnership model, basically. So there is a fee for some of the services for publication. Why is this a good thing? Because they work with more authors generally, and more newer authors, because you are taking, as the author, by contributing part of the funding for it, are taking away a little bit of the risk to the publisher. And there is a lot of risk when it comes to publishing books. I mean, I was just having a conversation with another publisher earlier about how much book sales have tanked in the last couple months because of things happening in the marketplace, things happening with Amazon, things happening in the economy, all of those types of things. So, it's book sales have been down. We're hoping that the market is about to correct itself, but it's fine fiscally. It's it's very risky for a publisher to take you on. So the hybrid publisher with the author contributing removes a little bit of that risk, and can still be a very, very beneficial partnership model, and operating like a traditional publisher would. And then you have self-publishing assist companies. And I include this in the publisher model because Many of them, and there are some great companies out there like Publish. You've got Lulu and Book Baby, and lots of Right Publish Sell at one point in time was doing this type of service as well. Lots of companies that will take your manuscript and will do all the things to it to prepare it for publication. So make sure that it's got your Library of Congress stuff, your ISBN, that it's formatted properly, that you have your ebook, that you have a great cover, all of those things. And but then they hand it back over to you and you publish it through your own accounts and you earn all of your royalties. But they've done all of the production element for you. And different companies will offer different takes on editing. When we were offering full service through Write Publish Sell, for example, part of our package included an assessment of the manuscript to determine what level of editing it needed. If it needed just a proofreading, we covered that in our process. If it needed more than that, the editor would recommend to the client what level it needed, and then they would need to go off and do that on themselves, so by themselves. So in the three different models, you have three different ways, and you may or may not have editing. With hybrid presses, they may or may not include editing, or it may be something they expect you to come with their book edited. So needless to say, the author, regardless of route, is probably going to have to take on at least the first round of developmental editing on their own.
That's a really great insight there. I would say that's one of the top secrets right there, because you need to have your presentation. And just as an editor, I'll kind of give a little bit more information. When we talk about developmental editing, that's not the grammar, spelling, punctuation, the syntax, and all the things that you may think about an editor that you think, oh, I can't write, I need it edited. This is your presentation. This is your story arc, your characters, your settings, your plot, all of that. If you're in fiction, and if you're in nonfiction, then we're looking at who's your audience, why are you the author, what makes you the authority in this, what genre are you doing, what is your intent, are you making sure that you're actually engaging the right readers, and do they know what to do? Are you just giving them information? Is it educational, informational, motivational? What way are we doing that? And then are you asking them to go to your website? Are you asking them to believe what you're telling them? Are you asking them to engage with you? Whatever it may be. And have you really mapped that out in your book? And if you don't have that clearly outlined, then you need substantive developmental editing to help make sure those are overlooked. And I would say a lot of times we get authors who come in the door and they want to edit, and they're ready for a content edit or a line edit in their mind, which is fine. We can polish the manuscript as is. However, if you haven't engaged the right readers and you have not put clear information in there, or somehow really connected with them, it doesn't matter how perfect the grammar, spelling, punctuation is. It's just not going to fly. So developmental it's part of your writing support. It's part of the creative portion before you go into the logical editing. So it's a coaching service, which is where we've started promoting it.
And back in the day when I was newer at this, I really thought that developmental editing was mostly for fiction novels. But the longer that I've been in this business, the more I've realized even children's books and nonfiction books can really benefit from the developmental edit. And you might think, well, a children's book, I mean, it's so short. But I'll give you an example. I have a children's book company, a hybrid press, Purple Butterfly Press, and we received a manuscript for one of our books publishing, and it was 1,750 words. Well, that's a lot of words for a children's picture book. So, so we definitely engaged a developmental editor because we needed to get it down to the right word count for a picture book. So, and tightening it up, pulling some themes together, making sure that it fits the way it needs to go. But in nonfiction books too, for what you just said, Joellen, making sure, I mean, if you're writing a how-to book, like making sure that the how-to makes sense throughout, like that you're not including a bunch of stories that don't really fit in there, or other things like that. So, I mean, I think it's good. What I love about working with editors is that a good editor and a good company like First Editing is going to review your manuscript, and they're going to tell you, this is what you need editing wise. You
Mm.
know, we're looking at it and we see some things that could really be strengthened. Your characters need to, you know, this character comes in here and then just drops off and no one ever hears from them again, or what, you know, they can help you determine what level you need. And those are really before you go to a publisher, before you go to an agent, like those kinds of things need to be worked out, because you know, no one's gonna, it's hard to sell a book that's not a good book. And editing is what you need to get to the point where it's a good book.
Right. And developmental editing is basically, everyone comes in, they ask me one of two things. They say, is it any good or is it ready to publish?
Right.
And those are two different paths. If it's any good, we're still at the developmental outlining, assessing the actual writing, actually assessing your message, your composition, your presentation, shall we say. If you're looking at, is it ready to publish, then you feel confident in what you've written. And now you want us to, be the sticklers who go through and shine it, shine it, shine it, shine it, which that's what we do. And there's different levels of that too. But really, you do not want to be having this conversation with the agent because they're not going to have it, I guess.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that one of our authors who published her first book with us and is now working with an agent for her second book, because she went from
Mm-hmm.
a literary fiction set in the 90s, which is something that our company that we published, to vampire books, which we don't do. So now she's working with an agent. Although I'd love to do vampire books, but that's not my thing yet. But she did go with an agent on this one. And even in that process, like even having had her book like really well fleshed out and all those types of things, her agent did send it back through a developmental edit. And it's been over a year that that
Wow.
she's just been working with the agent to get her book ready. So I mean, there are some agents who will take you through that process if they really, but I want to tell you that it's because these two people had a personal connection already because they met someplace. if
Mm-hmm.
if Casey had just submitted that book to the agent and they didn't have that personal connection and that relationship already built, she may have looked at her book and read it and said, it's not ready for me to take it yet. But because they had a personal relationship. So I want you to know that there are all of these things that I'm what the editing stuff is pretty much set in stone, but all the things that I'm telling you can be there can be many different lanes that you wind up going down, or opportunities that you go, but no matter no matter how you get there or where you're going, there's going to be editing involved.
Yeah.
um Moving it from that, and you know, I just released my first fiction book and was really amazed at the different level of editing required for a novel as opposed to nonfiction, but that's a whole different topic and I don't want to badly. But
No, I think it's great. So let me go to the first question I had for us today. And these are brought out from different people that we talk to all the time. So, for us, every time we do an edit and we say, okay, here's your book, congratulations, they go, now what? Now what do I do? If they haven't already scheduled their publishing and their launching and their marketing and all that. So, uh, of course, you can back up and do the whole publishing and marketing and all that if you want. But how do we transition and how do we put this into a chronological kind of, or a stepwise sequence for our authors out there?
first, I apologize. I just had a not a popsicle, a cough drop in my mouth. My children, my little germ bombs, have given me another pleasant surprise right before the holidays. I want to quickly, I see Elizabeth's question there. Do you recommend a developmental edit for a memoir? And there's probably memoir. Absolutely. Yes, and yes again. Before I get into this. Okay. So again, the path is going, and your steps and what you take is going to vary tremendously based on which route to publishing you decide to take.
Yeah.
So if you know right now that you are going to find an agent and go the agent path, then what you need to be doing, your path right now, is a couple of things: workshopping that book, working with either a writing coach or an editor or both, and getting that book as polished as possible so that when you submit, and this is fiction. Nonfiction is a little bit different in the traditional world. In the traditional world, you would actually be submitting a proposal. But let me tell you, these proposals are almost as hard as writing a full book, because you will need to be putting together a chapter by chapter summary, a marketing look, a comp title research portion, and your network, your ability to market, all of those kinds of things. So getting whatever it is that you need to submit to an agent, getting that perfected as much as you can. You also should be looking in this time frame at growing your platform. While it is true that platform does not matter to every agent or publisher, it matters to most of them. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and that is that it's really hard to sell. It's hard to sell books. And those of you who are already published probably know this already. Like, it is hard to sell books. And if you don't have anybody in your sphere of influence, that puts all the weight on the publisher, and they don't necessarily want to be in that type of position of having to do all the heavy lifting. So, different way. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can do it through social media. You can do it through getting out into the community, being speakers at events, anything that you can do that will help you grow your platform and grow your marketing, and grow your email list and all of those types of things. And that's across the board for all authors, but especially if you're looking to catch the eye of an agent and a big publisher, because one of the things, they have two major questions, three questions. Is the book a good book? Can we sell this book? Is there a market for the book? And can this author also promote and sell this book? So that's the traditional side. Then on the self-publishing and hybrid publishing side, again, with hybrid, you're going to want to start researching those hybrid publishers if that's the way you think you're going to go. And the advantage of hybrid is that you still are published by a publisher, a legit publisher. In most cases, you need to do your research and do some, examination, but you don't have to do all of the stuff. You're not managing it. They're going to take it and operate like the publisher. But you do need to start researching them and find out how they publish, what they do for you and what they don't do for you. Again, and what they're looking for. They will have submission requirements. They have an editorial review process. So they will look at the manuscripts and decide which ones are fit, which ones aren't, all of those types of things. So research is a big part of your job as an author as well, figuring out which route to publishing, what I need to do on each of those. If you're self-publishing, even if you're using a self-publishing assist company to walk you through it, you have to take on all the things from the very beginning. You need to start building your platform. You need to start building hype and excitement around your book topic and creating an audience of people who are going to be interested in it. Yes, while you're writing, you need to start thinking about things like your advanced reader team and the people that are going to help you build buzz, whether or not you're going to submit for editorial reviews, and trade reviews, that whole process. When your editing is going to come into the picture, your editing, depending on, all the things you're going to, finish writing the book. You need to have made sure that you have an editor lined up. So when you're done with the book, they are ready to take you on. And while you're going through the editing process, you can be working on some of the production stuff. You need to be thinking about, are you going to create an imprint around your book? Are you going to, what kind of cover are you going to have? What cover designer are you using? How are you going to have the interior formatted? You actually have to think through the whole process, just like a publisher would, step by step by step. What's your marketing strategy? Have you laid that out, thinking about pre-launch, launch, post-launch? By the way, you can have a marketing strategy even if you're published with a publisher or a hybrid press, because you're still going to be out there doing the work. So, you have to look at the full gamut of all the things that need to be done and how to do them. And I will say, we do have a free publishing checklist at writepublishsell.com that you can download that'll kind of walk you through the bigger steps of the things to think about. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, no matter which route to publishing you go, clean up your manuscript as much as you can, get that first round of editing, developmental editing, or whatever the editor tells you that you need to have, and start working on thinking like a business person from very early in the process to what you need to plan out in terms of marketing, in terms of platform growth, in terms of budget. This is something that, a lot of people don't consider until the last moment is, what budget do I need to have? And self-publishing, you should budget at least 5 grand. People don't like to hear that, but by the time you include editing, cover design, layout, formatting, marketing, all of those types of things that come along with it, hosting a website, having an email list provider, maybe paying someone to help you with some marketing, all those types of things. Can you do it for less than that? Absolutely. But you have to understand that if you start cutting corners, it can get more challenging in other ways.
And that price is including editing. And I just want to be very, very transparent with people that editing is not cheap. It just
Nope.
isn't. I would say we're one of the most competitive companies out there. We've been around for a very long time, and we have just, we have an army of editors on standby that we keep very busy. So that means because of the quantity, we can keep them busy and we can be very competitive in our prices. But that doesn't make the amount of time that goes in, or their expertise, or the training and the certification, any less valuable. So
Yeah.
again, and buyer beware when you go out to a freelancer who's going to promise you the world and you don't have a satisfaction guarantee. But back to the cost. I mean, the cost is really something that you need to be aware of. And most books are of a couple stages. They're either a passion project where you've already put so much time and energy into it that you really need to see this baby go.
Mm-hmm.
Or, with nonfiction, it can be a marketing expense, which is great. You put that in there and you have, as long as you have a clear, defined goal of how you're going to use the book, I think you should definitely see the return on your money there. And then, of course, there's memoirs and children's books. And of course, there's great things out there in the world. So we're here to help. But yeah, so that was very interesting. You're giving all those outlines there. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that, go to Write, Publish, Sell and get that checklist. And that's why it's really good to have, as we recommend, because we only do the editing, you need to really have somebody who is an expert, who's been through this process many, many times. It may be your first rodeo, but they've been there for a very long time. And that has an immense value to it. The other thing I encourage you to do is find a community of authors to keep you energized and engaged. And I know you have a growing community over at Write, Publish, Sell.
Yes. Yeah. So the question was asked, how do you get the publishing checklist? If you go to writepublishsell.com and scroll down just a little bit, there's a big banner across the middle of the page that says download the book launch checklist. And it's just, it's your key points to consider when you're publishing. When you sign up for that, you'll also get onto our email list, and we send out lots of very detailed information on the publishing process and things that you need to know all the way through that whole thing. So yeah, Brian, I agree. 10K, you can easily spend $10,000 on publishing. It really depends on what level of help your book needs from the beginning, and how much you put into the marketing, and if you do a print run and all those kinds of things. But that's something that for a long time, people, I get the feeling that a lot of folks in here are self-publishing. So I'll just hop over into that world for a minute here. For a long time, we heard that you can self-publish for free. You can do it all on your own. Anybody can self-publish, blah, blah, blah. I just want to tell you right now, and excuse I'm a little blasé today because I'm under the weather, but that's just BS.
Yeah.
You just can't do it you cannot do it for free if it's meant to be a book that people are going to buy. If it's a passion project or just your mama's cookbook, favorite recipes, things that you just want to publish to say that you've published, you can save a lot of money. But if you are actually trying to be a competitive author out there and you are trying to sell a lot of books, now, there are some fun tools out there to help you reduce the cost. Vellum can help you if you're just doing a standard fiction book that doesn't require a lot of extra things, like not a children's book and not a cookbook, not anything like that, but just a standard book. Vellum is an inexpensive licensed product that you can use to lay out your your product. You can find pre-made covers. Actually,
Yep.
my book 4 Days in Paris has one of the best covers I've ever seen on it, and it was a pre-made. Now
Right.
she creates these and she sells them, and then she made it mine. She
Yep.
tweaked it to make it mine, so it wasn't just like when you not like just a fake, just a cover that's all anyway. She
Yep.
made it mine still, but that was saved me a lot of money in cover design on it. There are ways that you can take to do that, but editing should never be a shortcut. Editing should never be a shortcut, because I've seen too many books just get slaughtered when they get out there into the marketplace because of the fact that the storyline's not congruent, the grammar's bad, there's errors, there's other things. Like, if you want to sell books, first and foremost, it has to be a good book. And I'm sorry, I know you wanted to jump in there, and I just kept going in my
No,
excitement.
no, it's fine. Actually, you're answering the question, so I'm putting it there as, what is the publisher need when you're going through this pre-editing, because this is where we are, uh, and of course you need to know what you're doing so you can, what do you say, multitask, because once you send your manuscript off to the editor, we can be working on making it look great and creating all the feedback and the reviews, the assessments and the critiques that you need. But at the same point, the publisher, before you get all started, what do they need? And it's like she said, it's got to be comprehensive. It's got to be understandable. We've got to be able to read it. And, this is an ironic thing, really behind the scenes here, but I'm going to be a little bit more transparent today. We often get manuscripts here that really do need a syntactical content edit, meaning we need to do the grammar, spelling, punctuation, the sentence layout, because we can't get the comprehension to evaluate the storyline yet. And that's just, this often comes with English as a second language, often comes if if writing is not your, creativity is your strength, but writing, the actual skills are a little hard. That's okay. It just means that's where you are. Some of the best stories out there came from people who can't write at all. Somebody else wrote it down for them. But, we got to make sure that we're getting that. So the last thing you want to do is have something where it's misunderstood. And that can be from a typo or misspelling or grammar mistakes, but it can also be from the whole presentation. So there are two ways of looking at it, and you really need to have both of those tight. And a good way to assess if your editing is going well is your beta readers out there, your community, your feedback there, to figure out if you're on there. So I was just asking what your needs are from the publisher, from the author as a publisher before you're of pre-editing. And I think first off, it's going to be self-editing, followed by working with an editor and finding all that out, because you're assessing them also.
Yeah. So when somebody submits to us now, I have two hybrid presses and a traditional press.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone submits to us on the hybrid presses, we do go through an evaluation. We look at the manuscript. We decide whether, the first question is this a book that fits within the genres that we publish? And that should be a question that all publishers ask. So if you're going to a publisher, smaller publisher, big publishers, obviously Simon and Schuster, they do the whole thing. Random House, they do all across the board. But with smaller publishers, you want somebody who's focused on particular genres, because it's really hard to market everything if you don't have the kind of expansive network that one of the top 5 or 4 or 6 or whatever it is these days, as they get all over the place. So we first say, like for Cat Biggie Press, for example, Cat Biggie Press only does transformational nonfiction, basically. And we've taken a couple that were other genres before, and then we remembered why we don't take other genres. So it's transformational nonfiction, grief, loss, healing, all of those types of things, inspiration. And so we look at the manuscript, and if it doesn't fit in that, it doesn't even matter how well written or edited it is at that point in time. If it doesn't fit in that, it's a no. So that's how we do it. Then so it makes it to the yes pile, then we will look at it and we'll read through and say, is this a good book? Is this a book that we would be happy to put our name on and that we think we can sell? At that point in time, we hope that it's come to us fairly polished, because we hope time wise and investment wise and all of those types of things that we can just go through a copy edit and a proofread and get into formatting and get ready. Because the thing is with working with a publisher, like we like to have our books finished and ready to get into the hands of readers 6 months prior to publication. So working with our advanced readers, getting it to the trade and editorial reviews, all of those types of things. And with traditional publishers, that can be as far as a year out. I'm sure you've gone to a book event at some point in time and you've been given a galley copy or a copy that's an ARC copy, advanced reader copy, and it can be 6 to 12 months prior to publication to start building that buzz. So, really, again, the publisher's expectations are going to be different from different types of publishers and where you're going. And generally, these are types of questions that you can find out on the website or through the process of learning more about that. But the most important thing, again, and we're hammering this like a dead horse, but you have to submit something that's going to be impressive. If I open up a manuscript and it's a mess, I don't have the energy to deal with that. Like I just not when I've got 6 other, 10 other people who have submitted books that are basically ready to go to the next stage. You definitely do not want to submit a book that is in basically a first draft form. And sadly, and by first draft, I don't mean like the end of your NaNoWriMo project first draft. I mean like you've maybe self-edited a little bit and revised it a little bit, but it's clearly not edited and it's clearly not workshopped and it's clearly not ready to move forward. Because that's a long road to get there. And I've worked with books like this before. And back in the early days when we were just getting started and learning the ropes. And you know what we wound up? It took years. It took almost 2 years to get the book ready for publication because we just had to keep going back through editing and another round and all of that. So that's a lot of investment of the publisher's time and team and energy to do that. So the better prepared you can be in the beginning, the better you can go in there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see here. How does an author transition? And yeah, what are you looking for your pre-editing? It just needs to be top quality. So honestly, they're not going to tell you if you didn't do it right.
And you know
There's
what?
not enough time.
That's right. That's exactly right. When you submit, you just won't either hear back from them or you'll just get a blank. No, it's not. We usually will write a small paragraph back, but usually it's to say this isn't a good fit for our company. The name of the company is Cat Biggie Press, but we are actually closed to submissions right now. So, Purple Butterfly Press is our children's book company. Our submissions are open right now. Okay, let's see. I wanted some excellent hybrid publishers. Richard asked. Well, the best one in the industry, I believe, is She Writes Press, run by Brooke Warner. They only work with women authors, so I'm sorry that's not going to be up your alley. But there's Top Reads Publishing, run by Terry. Why did I just forget her last name? Terry. Oh man, cold brain. There's lots of really good ones out there actually, and what you need to do is you need to go over to the Independent Book Publishers Association and you need to or you can just Google IBPA hybrid publishers checklist or hybrid standards checklist. Something along those lines will get you there. It'll give you a list of questions and some criteria for evaluating a hybrid press. Because there are tons of them out there, and I work through the Women in Publishing Summit. We have many of them come into our community. Emerald Lake Books with Tara. I can't remember anybody's last name today. Emerald Lake Books is another really good one. There are many very reputable ones out there, but you want to ask questions and see what they've published and do all of those types of things. Okay, so
great.
Yes.
So let's see here. We're just going to take a few of these because we really have a lot of information and you're excellent. So I don't worry about time, but we're we're going to run out of time as we
We are
do.
going to run it because there's too much to talk about. We could talk for days. That's
Well,
why
but
people need to sign up for this 4-part series where we'll get
exactly.
more in depth on all of these.
This is just kind of giving you a behind the scenes that, you know, there is a real connection between editing and publishing.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the transition of the stages, but it's a connection between the editors and the publishers, because they are, even though we're working in our own stalls there, the result is absolutely essential before you can go to the next stage. If you don't complete it, then you're not going to get anywhere. So they asked, Elizabeth asked, do you recommend a developmental edit for a memoir? Absolutely. And a memoir that has a narrative story that, you know, it can follow a story arc, and we're looking for those key points in there. That's going to be something that you're going to go in with like a story coach or a storytelling evaluation there of a development. So we're going to look at your story arc, your characters, your scenes, your plot, and how you're resolving the conflict and things like that. Otherwise, you go into a nonfiction historical, and that's more of a you know, factual book. But of course, that also needs a substantive edit, and just to make sure that you're presenting it all and it really reads clear. And why am I going to read your book? Why do I want to care about this memoir? What attaches me? Now, if you're grandkids, that's one thing. But if you're actually wanting to compete out there, then you need to look at it. And is it a memoir, you know, based on, is it a fiction based on fact, or different things like that? So let's see here. We have a lot of questions coming in. How shall we proceed here? Let's see. If I go back here, we have your needs. Let's just cover this one really quick. What are some of the top mistakes that authors make when editing that affects their publishing success? And I can start it out here, but I think one of them is underestimating the time for revisions, and the fact that it's not something you hand over to an editor, they edit, and then it's done. It's actually a dance, and it's a cha-cha. It's 2 steps forwards, 1 step back constantly, because anytime an editor makes a recommendation for changes or feedback or question something in that book, you're going to need to go in and make a revision, and that revision will either add, subtract, or in some way change the story, the presentation. And when that happens, you need to make sure that you didn't introduce any new mistakes, any new problems, or that, you know, it doesn't omit something that's essential to the overall presentation. So that's one of the things I find. So revisions can be way more than you anticipated, even if you get more of a done-for-you service. We have a executive content editing where the editor actually does most of the changes, and of course you have to approve them, but they're doing most of the changes in terms of rewrites from paragraph to paragraph and line to line. And that's helpful, but it's still, you know, it's still your baby. You got to own it. Go ahead.
Yeah. That hands down, that's the number one issue, is the timeline. I'm a professional at this, and I've been publishing books for 10 years, and I still underestimated the timeline that I would need in revising my own first novel, and wound up having to push the launch date back about 4 months. So this is a big, and it's easy to fall into this, right? Where you just assume, okay, the book is done. I feel pretty good. I've self-edited it. I've run it through Pro Writing Aid. I've done these things, you know, I've workshopped it, piece of cake. And then your developmental editor comes back and is like, we got some problems. Or then your copy line editor comes back and says, we we need to get this a little to, and oh, by the way, mentally and emotionally, you're thinking you're done, and then you have to start over again. So for me, part of the timeline was that I had to take a break. I set it aside for 6 weeks after I got the feedback back from the developmental editor. So, you know, it's those are the times of things. Then, you know, but also I would say, and one of the reasons that I really like your company at First Editing so much is because you do have really highly skilled and highly trained editors. If you've chosen the wrong editor. If you've gone with a freelancer and they haven't, they don't have certifications, they may be great at grammar, but aren't really a trained editor. And you go through the process. I've seen this so many times. It breaks my heart. People have hired an editor, gotten their book edited, thought it was ready to go, submitted, and the publisher is like, "Ooh, that's going to need some more, that's not really edited well, or they only did this, or they meant, all of those types of things." And editing is never a perfect science. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter how many times you go through. If you started with something that needed tons of editing, like just getting it to the point where it's readable sometimes is all, but it depends on where you start. But, anyway, so that's a big thing, is not having worked with an editor that gave you a quality edit, and then when you get to the publisher, having to start all of that all over again. And then the other thing that I would say is that writing, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. So there are just some books that aren't meant for the marketplace,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's hard to hear. So if you have a book that's not meant for the marketplace, or is going to be very challenging to sell, um, an editor can make it the best content wise, the best, perfected book ever done, but there still may just be no spot for it to sell, or it may not do well. So that sometimes, when you do a manuscript, prior to editing, a manuscript critique with people who have an idea of what's selling, what's not selling, what you need to, all those types of things, that can be really helpful too. But yeah, I
And I
mean,
think it's important. I just want to mention there that, we get that question all the time. Okay, well, who could publish this? And really, when you come in, whichever genre you are that you're writing after, whoever you're emulating, what other authors are like yours, you're following the basics of looking at their book covers to make sure that yours is similar. You're looking at the same fonts. But you're also going to look at who are they publishing with?
right.
Where is their audience? Because they're the ones you want to approach. You don't approach a sci-fi publisher when you're doing romance. It's just they don't have that set up. But the
Yeah.
ones who do, if they're vampire writers, then you want to go to the vampire publishers, because they're gonna, there's a huge amount of audience there waiting for the next great one out there. Like
Right.
Twilight proved that. So it's definitely there. So make sure that you are aware, and if you don't know what you don't know, make sure you get one of these checklists. Make sure that you get in with a community. Make sure that you're writing down your questions. No question is ridiculous at this point, because it's not something you do every day, and we do, and there's still many questions out there. So okay, shall we go? Let's go to. We have the average publishing timeline varies, but I'm just going to leave that one alone. And I'm going to ask the last one. Give us your top tips for publishing prep.
Mm-hmm.
If you had 1, 2, 3 there. One.
Okay. So I'm sure we will dig into this in detail in our 4th webinar event, which is all about the publishing process. But to get ready, the best thing that I can tell you to do is to start thinking about what you're trying to achieve as you're publishing your book, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to, and people, almost everybody who talks about this talks about knowing your goals. And it sounds so cliche when you say it, but it's incredibly important, because if you don't know what you are trying to get to, you can't create a path to get there. So if your goal is, I want to be a New York Times bestseller, I want to be doing this, I want to be showing up and doing events and everything of those, then your goal is probably to aim for a top 5. And you're going to have an entire checklist of things that you need to do to have a book and a platform and all those things. And your process is going to take you a few years longer than everybody else's. And if you're good with that, go for it, because that's your goal and you should aim for that goal. If you are looking to, control your own process, you don't want somebody else's input and say into the process, you want to choose your own cover, then you're going to want to go the self-publishing route. because that's the only place, even with a hybrid press, even if you are a partnership in money, you are not necessarily partnership in decision making, because you are still publishers who know the professional ins and outs of it, right? So if you're going to do the self-publishing, then spend some time learning as much as you can so that you can be as successful as possible. If your goal is to just it's your dream. I'll go back to my very first book, actually. My very first book had nothing to do with anything I'm doing now. It was on grief and loss. We lost an infant daughter. I was blogging. I was sharing my story with people. I was talking and advocating for parents of twins with twin to twin transfusion syndrome. I was doing a lot of things like that. I had created a community of grieving parents and I wanted to do more. So I pulled people together to write Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother. My goal was not book sales. My goal was not marketing. My goal was not doing anything except for getting a book that I needed
Yeah.
um, into the hands of other mothers who needed it, right?
Yep.
And that's okay. Those goals are important too. And you're going to take a little bit of it different. You can do things differently when you do that. So find out what it is that you want and dream big, because I hear a lot of people that are like, oh, I just wrote this book and I just want to publish it. And then launch day happens and they're like, I can't believe I didn't sell 1,000 copies. Well, you didn't do the work to sell 1,000 copies. So if you want to sell 1,000 copies, that's your goal, and do the work to do that.
Yeah.
So that will help you as you establish what you're trying to do, and all the other questions that you need to ask yourself: which route to publishing you're going to take, which type of company you may work with, what type of marketing dollars you're going to invest, how long your timeline's going to be. Like, all of those things are going to be dependent on the goal that you set for yourself. So that's just really important to know and understand. And then getting out there and being educated. There is no reason for anybody to not be educated about publishing anymore. First
No.
Editing has a blog. We have a blog. We've got the Women in Publishing Summit. There's all kinds of conferences happening all year round. Joanna Penn, the Creative Penn, has a great podcast. You've got Mark Dawson. I mean, there are just so many phenomenal resources out there, both free and paid. The problem may be information overload, but there's certainly a lot of great content out there to help you through the writing, publishing, and marketing process. And then wonderful, wonderful service providers to help you, like First Editing, in the process of getting there.
Right. I think that, it really, again, that is great. And learn what you can, use the tools that are available, but only if they work for you. Don't overload.
Right.
It is an elephant, so just take it one bite at a time. But find, know what your questions are, what you need to do. And if you have goals clearly outlined, it's much easier to find those answers than to go out and find out what's possible.
Yeah.
Because that's, it's literally unlimited, the possibilities. But if you have a clearly defined, am I trying to live on this publishing? Am I trying to become a bestseller? Am I doing this for, to inspire others, connect with others, to educate others, whatever it may be? If you can clearly outline those, not only does it help you prepare and market and launch, but it also helps you clearly find the correct publisher and publishing route for yourself. So again, that's good. And also the right editors. So
and you know what, just one more thing
to
back on that is that the benefit to attending conferences, whether it's a virtual or live, writing events, all of those types of things, is connections made.
Yeah.
Relationships, just like anything else, it's so much about who you know. Often, and a lot of times I connected with an agent at the South Carolina Writers Association who I pitched her an idea. I said, I haven't even started writing this book, but this is what I'm thinking. Pitched her the idea. She was like, that sounds great. Go write it, workshop it, get it. She told me, have it edited, and send it to me. And if it's a good book that I think I can sell, I'm totally interested in this idea. And that shortcuts me from having, now she may say no to it, but if she says yes, I've just saved myself months of querying agents and all those types of things. But relationships are important, and you meet the people who can help you get to different places. So I strongly encourage, if that's not part of your marketing budget and your plan, or your professional development budget and plan, it really should be. Attend a good conference every year that's right for your niche, for your genre, and for for what you're doing.
I really I have this, my own little mantra slash thing that I stick to when I go to any conference, anything I attend, and I basically go in and I say, I'm just going to walk away with one golden nugget. And really, because again, there's so much great information coming out there, but if you can walk away with one actionable idea or solution and you implement it, you will instantly see how valuable it was and how it helps you. So if it's a new tool or a new connection or having, I don't know, a new way of looking at things, just hold on to that. And you can take as many notes as you want, but work through them one at a time. And you will see immensely how incredibly powerful they are. It's small tools, but it's useless if you take it all in and you come back with so much and you just think, I got to do this, I got to do that. And you kind of overwhelm yourself. Whereas if you say, okay, I'm going to find one thing, how do I edit this? How do I find a beta reader? How do I find the best person to market? Which publishing route am I taking? If you can assess that, then the value's there and you'll get back every penny you put in and every minute you invested in that online or offline seminar and connection. So again, we have a couple of questions here. I'm going to pick and choose because we're out of time, folks. They're asking about prices, how much they typically charge for editing. It can be anywhere from 1 to 3 cents for a basic edit to 5 cents a word. And again, that's highly competitive. Most editors out there who are, taking on one client at a time, and then they have to eat, live, and market and manage all this themselves, it's much higher because they don't have the marketing behind them. But if you want to know how much your editing costs, just find us at firstediting.com. We'll give you a free editing sample and an instant price quote and an evaluation and a recommendation of which level of editing you need. So David used us. Great. Thank you, David, for speaking up. Dave Bartel also highly recommend. I have to show these just because this is great. And everything about what those six secrets are. Work with a developmental editor. What are the 6 editing secrets? I'm going to line them out for you. I'll type them up in here. They were based on our questions today. The secrets of what we need to. What are the main things to focus on? What are the options that you have? How editing fits into the overall process of publishing? How important that is. Let's see here. Publish the name of the publishing company. It was said so fast we couldn't hear it.
Oh, that's when she was asking about Cat Biggie Press.
Okay, good. Share my editor cost publishing. Did you say how much did budget for self-publishing? I missed the figure. We did say 5,000 in general, but go ahead if you want to expand on that.
I mean, it can be anywhere from 2,500 to 10,000, but realistically, if you're including editing and marketing and all of the things, I think it's a realistic budget to plan for 5,000. Can you make shortcuts? Can you do other things? Can you save money in other places? Yes,
you can. But the highest one is going to be your editing. And then after that is your marketing and launch, depending upon you do that. You can spend a lot more than editing on that if you really want to do it well. Mm-hmm. And, everybody has their own budget in which to work. But I would, definitely, I think it's under, even if you have a great book, if nobody knows it exists, it's not going to sell. So it has to be a good book. And it has to be well distributed. You need the reviews, you need the readers, you need all of that lined up.
I can tell you, as a publisher, we spend between 10 and 20 per book.
Exactly. Let's see. How does one acquire the publishing checklist? Can you share that one more time so that they can go?
Go to writepublishsell.com, scroll down. It's in the middle of the page. You'll see the book launch checklist, opt in.
Excellent. And so the 4-part series is going to be, we will send out an email to everyone who signed up for this. And you can follow us on YouTube and here, First Editing's channel, or you can also follow Write, Publish, Sell with Alexa and the Women in Publishing Summit. And we'll announce those. That'll be in January and February. So we're all going to take a break over the holidays and get well. So that, and there'll be 4 weeks in a row, and it'll be way more condensed and on target here.
Dennis, to take your writing from a hybrid to a real publisher. So that's a great question, and that would be probably finding an agent. If you're really ready to make it to the next level, you can either go the solicited route to the bigger publishers, look for an agent, or you can go to Publishers Marketplace and you can look to see what publishers are out there that take unsolicited manuscripts. But really, it's going to be a matter of finding publishers who publish work like you're publishing and finding out what their process is for submissions and acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So we have, what are the different types of editing and how do they differ? Because we didn't go in specifically on how to edit today. These are the editing secrets, basically based upon, why is editing important before publishing? Mm-hmm. What is revisions? How does that affect you? What is the timeline? How to budget and put that into your timeline? What are things that you need to be doing before that? What are the major mistakes that you make, etc.? So I will outline these. I'm sorry if we're a little pushed here. So what are the different types of editing and how do they differ? And then Dave responded to that you can go to our website. But the different types of editing is basically at the top. You have your developmental editing, and then we get into your content, your line, and your copy editing. So, and then of course, after you've formatted, you have proofreading, which is actually separate. And that's just make sure that when you uploaded it into the formatting and that it didn't screw things up and erase stuff. So that is where we are, folks. I hope please send us emails, editors@firstediting.com. You can definitely send us any questions there. I will follow up on those. And Alexa, can you tell us where we can find more about you and your company before we leave?
Yeah, you can go to writepublishsell.com. You can follow us on any social at Write Publish Sell. We also have womeninpublishingsummit.com. Our tickets for the next conference are on early bird pricing right now. It runs the 1st through the 4th of March. We do a day that covers writing, a day that covers editing and production and routes to publishing, a day on marketing, and a day on business tools and growth. It's really a wonderful virtual event. And even if you don't want to come to the conference, go to our website anyway and get on the email list. We do a free monthly webinar each month. And yeah, we look forward to helping you dig into all of your publishing questions and marketing. I love marketing.
Yes, absolutely. And we will send out emails following up on this and outlining the information that we covered today, and of course, providing all that for you and giving you an update on what's happening next. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Alexa, for giving us a little bit of a behind the scenes information on how we incorporate editing into the publishing, because they are hand in hand and you can't do one without the other, not if you want to succeed. So those are very, very important.
Correct.
Again, we'll see you soon. Everyone, signing out. Have a great day.
Bye.